Welcome into Real Friends, episode 2. We are 3 real friends who watch movies together, then talk about them together. I'm your host, T-Bob Hebert. To my left is a video producer on our radio show, Mr. Nathan Velasquez. Nathan,
hello.
What's going on? To my right is our excellent audio producer on the radio show, the wonderful Miss Rivers, Hughey. Rivers, what's going on?
Hi.
Welcome in. This is episode 2. Of course, it's all a little weird because it's kind of third episode, but it's officially labeled episode 2. And if you've seen us before, you know that through this month of October, to celebrate Halloween, we have been choosing 3 scary movies each week. We watch those movies, and then we get together, we discuss them, and we rank them. We started off with kind of childish, nostalgic movies. Then we went with kind of your psychological thrillers last week. And then this week, a week that I was very excited for, we went into the realm of the supernatural. So the movies we're going to discuss this week, got a little Rosemary's Baby. We got The Exorcist and a newer one, as Nate pointed out, the first movie from this century that we're covering, The Witch, a New England folk tale.
The only movie that we will ever cover in this entire Halloween series that will be in this century.
That's true. Spoiler alert. Next week, the final Halloween week episode, we're hitting the 80s Holy Trinity. We're going to go Nightmare on Elm Street, Halloween, Friday the 13th. Who will reign supreme? Will it be Freddy? Will it be Jason? Will it be Michael Myers? I can't wait to find out. But I might be even more excited, y'all, to talk about this week. So we're going to do it in the same way that we have done. We're going to go chronological order here. And as always, Nate's going to provide us with some background info to start. So that means that we begin with the oldest movie of the bunch. And it is incredibly old when you think about it now. 1968's Rosemary's Baby.
Rosemary's Baby, yeah, 1968, directed by Roman Polanski. Incredible filmmaker, also a little skeevy.
Yeah,
It's
fine. He made Chinatown, The Pianist, The Tenant, and it's based on a book by Ira Levin, who also wrote things like Stepford Wives, Boys from Brazil, which is also kind of like conspiracy investigation, thinks that people are going crazy with these ideas, types of things. And yeah, it's a young couple move into a very nice apartment complex in New York. They decide they're going to have a baby, and through meeting some strange people, the couple next door, Rosemary starts to think that there are witches that are involved in a plot to get a hold of her baby to do something.
Some evil occult worshipers. And it should be noted that there will be spoilers throughout this program here on Real Friends, because the whole point of this, we want y'all to watch movies during the week as well, so you can have an idea of kind of what we're talking about. So who wants to start with Rosemary's Baby? Does anybody feel very passionately about this movie?
I liked it.
Rivers,
I'd never seen it before.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so I didn't know what to expect. I did not realize that it was so old.
Yeah.
I mean, it's one of those movies that you hear a lot about. I always hear people talking about it. I had no idea what it was even about. I mean, I guess I kind of knew what it was about, but
well, you assume, but the execution,
yes.
No, I was thinking more Omen, and it ended up being much less about the actual child and just much more about Mia Farrow and her and her struggle.
I liked that the movie functioned around this idea of witchcraft, but a lot of the movies that we've watched that that surround witchcraft, they're really more based in like history or like Salem-y or religious-y, which, I mean, I guess some
as
of
we'll
this,
get to later in this episode.
Which I guess some of this was based on history, you know, the father and all the stuff.
But
but it was still contemporary to the time.
Yes, it was really about present time, like occult type situation.
Well, I think it played with the notion of, you know, the most regular people, and kind of the monsters hiding beneath. Yeah,
right.
like the sweet old lady who bags your groceries, if people still go, for bagging groceries, like the doctor, whoever, just the regular people who have this very dark undercurrent.
Right.
Did you think that that she was giving birth to the devil? Like, because I forgot when watching it that like towards the end, I remember thinking the first time that they just want her baby and it's a normal baby. And I kind of forgot that when I first saw it, I really, had no idea at all that she was having the devil's child.
I had no idea.
Okay.
I truly just thought that they wanted her baby for some reason, some unspecified reason, maybe to raise it to become
Well, they kind of
they
kind of misdirect you that way though, because they talk about, Mia Farrow specifically talks about how the occult and the group that, is it Marcano, Adrian Marcano? I can't remember exactly, Marcato, whatever. That group that they want baby's blood, right? That they use like baby's blood in their in their spell casting. But then no, I guess in the end it was all about bringing Satan's child.
I definitely
into,
thought they were going to kill
existence.
it. And then you hear it crying, and so you're like, okay, well the baby is alive, or she's crazy, or whatever. Because at that point, you still don't technically know that they are for sure witches. So when she's hearing the baby cry, in my mind, I was like, she could just be imagining that. But speaking of the baby and taking the baby and whatever, the thing that was the strongest to me in this movie, the theme, was just sort of this thing surrounding like women's rights, like your bodies. And I know we live in a much more liberal time. I mean, this was 68, but it was really frustrating for me to watch Rosemary struggle for the right to make decisions about her body or about doctors or whatever without getting permission from her husband or her neighbor or anyone other than herself.
And I kind of thought that the character that Ruth Gordon plays, the old
woman?
Yeah, I thought that was kind of a good way to get around that, because I mean, obviously there's no internet, anything like that at this time, and so she's got this woman next door who, I mean, if you're in her position, she seems like she's taking an interest. She's older, so she's been through this for sure. And
if anything, she's like the annoying old,
she's
lady
like the neighbor
door.
you don't want to answer the door for, but you do.
But she wants to talk all the time.
It's able to like put it out of your head, because she's like, oh well, she's gonna take care of, like, she's taking care of too much with the baby, so it can kind of put in her mind like, everything's taken care of.
Yeah.
Right, and I know maybe that was sometimes the intention, but but there was very much this like part of me that wanted to be like, just let her do whatever she wants. Let her go see the other doctor.
When her friends are like, if you have been having pain for a month, you've got to go
You're
see another
a crazy
doctor.
person. Go see another doctor.
It is, to me, Rivers, it's exactly what you said. Mia Farrow's helplessness in this entire situation, despite the fact that she has it figured out. Like, she has it all dead to rights. She puts the clues together. She figures out about her, is it husband or boyfriend?
Husband.
She figures out about her husband taking the guy's tie to then cast a spell on him so he gets his big break. Like, she puts everything together and she has it dead to rights. And yet, because of a woman's kind of place at that time in 1968, she can't do anything about it. And she ends up getting hit with one of the most terrifying threats out there. And you see this played with a lot in those older shows, which is the mental hospital, where if you keep talking like this, we're going to send you to the mental hospital. Now, I will say this. If we had, because I've seen this movie before and I really enjoyed this movie. Do you think, if you, who had not seen this movie? You had not?
I had not seen it.
Did you ever question whether or not what she was suspecting was real or not? Because you don't really get full on true and 100% verifiable truth until the very end, where you see everybody in that room together.
I never questioned it. I don't know. Maybe it's just like, as a woman, I'm like trying to support my homegirl. I don't know, but I never questioned it. I always knew there was something weird. I just couldn't figure out like the players and who was actually bad and
I knew there was something weird. I mean, even still, I've seen this movie so many times, and even still watching it, I always think that she could be crazy. And I love, not that she's crazy, you know that something is going wrong, but to the extent, and I think it switches a lot between like, yeah, of course, Rosemary's right, all this stuff is weird, to then evidence is like, maybe it's not as bad as
maybe
it
she
seems.
Is crazy.
Yeah, and I love the paranoid angle. And I know that the movie is a little bit slow, but I think it sustains itself through all the paranoia of her kind of, because I feel kind of like I go through a little bit like, well, yeah, this is weird, but it might not be as bad as it seems, because there's still circumstantial stuff going on.
But I mean, there was some stuff you just couldn't, I mean, again, as a woman, this movie really, I mean, it's hard to watch. There's that whole rape scene.
Yeah.
Yes, that scene is so scary.
Totally brushed off.
Yeah.
And again, it was 68. I don't know. Maybe it wasn't as big of a deal, but I guess it was crazy to me for two reasons. One, she's imagining this scene where she's being raped, and she wakes up and she's like, maybe it's not real. Fine. Yeah. I mean, that's kind of hard to watch anyways. But then she wakes up and she's got those scratches on her back, and her husband comes in and is kind of like, oh, well, you fell asleep, but I still wanted to do this.
Oh, yeah. And I think that at the end in particular.
And it's just, to your point, and it's just not a big deal. You're supposed to just, she's supposed to just.
But you could immediately see, I think she did a great job. They didn't really address it, but you could see her almost just like fold into herself. I mean, that's just hard to watch.
I thought that the scariest thing about the last scene, and the last scene I find incredibly disturbing, particularly whenever she sees her husband and he like gets up and sits back down and he's ashamed. And I think that partly of you realize that the devil was just given birth, like you just gave birth to the devil. But the
utter going on.
betrayal of everyone there, especially of the husband, of like you let all of this happen. You were perfectly fine with it.
And now we're going to move
here.
to Cali and pretend like it didn't happen.
Yeah, I mean, let's talk about the husband real quick, because what an utter and total piece of trash.
You know who he reminds me of? And this is
Jordy. No, I'm just kidding. I'm sorry.
This is a real, I don't know if this might offend some people, but I feel like college athletes, all the different sports have their own like personalities as far as like how cool they think they are.
Yeah.
But like the college baseball players who like walk around, they're very cocky and like think they're cool and witty and smart and whatever. And like that, but then they end up like graduating and not making it big and like managing some tire store. That's what he reminded me of.
He was probably very popular in high school. His professional career as an actor hadn't quite gone how he'd wanted.
Yeah, he was about to go manage a tire store.
Commercials and everything. Yeah. And to me, it's so, I don't know if it's because I have my own child on the way, but the amount of callousness, the amount of selfishness that he displays, knowingly putting his wife in this situation really to pursue his own end goals. And I can see what he's doing in his head, right? In his head, he's telling himself, he's justifying it by saying like, well, no, this is really for her better. This is for her well-being in the end, because it's going to lead to my break. We're going to have a lot of money and then we're going to be happy and we'll be able to put this all past us. But it's just so incredibly selfish and messed up. And
those flowers you keep bringing, they're not helping.
I hate him. And I think you're obviously supposed to, but I absolutely hate him by the end of this movie.
I don't like that they kind of gave away in her dream in that scene where she is, I guess, being raped by the devil or whatever. They include him in it and whatever. And that's the moment where I kind of was like, I already didn't like him, but now he's definitely in on it.
Yeah.
But they did that really early. I wish that they had found a different way to make you a little suspicious, but not totally throw him in.
He's like a bit more of a twist.
Because then you're not
like
sure.
You think he's like the last bastion of, okay, he's on her side, and then no, it flips around. He's terrible. Now, I do want to go back to something that we were discussing a little bit ago, which is this idea of, would is what she's experienced real or not? An interesting way to examine that question. If you were the doctor that she went to for help, the doctor that then tells her to lay down, like you said, kind of stay in your place, lay down, we're going to help you out, and then calls the very people she's trying to run away from. But if you were that doctor, what would you have done if this woman comes in there says that somebody is trying to,
I would have had to
take her baby, witches, everything else?
I would, and also they're in New York. Like, have y'all we've all been to
Yes,
New York?
I love New York.
There's crazy stuff every day. You run
Every
into
day.
10 crazy people on the sidewalk.
Great point.
Well,
That's a really good
I actually wrote some of my notes for The Exorcist. I don't know, play into this as well. The idea of like having something happen to you, especially something paranormal, and going to you always see these scenes where they go to the doctor, and as the viewer, you're so frustrated because you're like, it is happening to them. It's not like a brain malfunction. Like they truly are having something happen to them. But if you are the doctor, what do you do?
Well, and that's why I think it's important to put yourself in his shoes, because it's easy to hate that character. And arguably, I would hope that nowadays it would maybe be a bit different in that you would call the authorities and let them kind of sort out whether or not she's crazy.
Because obviously she's afraid of these
she's
people.
afraid of those people,
For
right?
some
And so
reason.
that's the bottom line.
But
And
also,
so,
I think that, he's got this woman who's ready to give labor. I would absolutely hate to call the cops on someone like that. I would want to say, like, listen, I know your doctor. I'm going to get your husband here. They're going to take care of you.
But that's the point, though, is that she did tell him that she was specifically scared of those two.
Okay, that
and
is
so
true.
even if I don't believe that
Call a
they're
caseworker
actually
or like someone.
occult workers or something, I would hope that nowadays the idea would be, well, there has to be maybe there's some sort of abusive situation going on right there. I'm not going to send them back to those people. One thing I also loved was how uncomfortable this movie made you constantly with how Mia Farrow's physical appearance was.
Oh, yeah.
So I thought she was going to just absolutely break.
She gets more pregnant and yet less healthy and more wasted away and skinnier, even though her belly grows. It's just a very...
It's gross.
It keeps... Yes, it is gross. I think that's a perfect word for it. It keeps you on edge throughout the film.
And I guess having seen it, watching it again, I think this movie is so much fun to watch again because there's like a few things that come up, like whenever the pain goes away and she tells her husband, like, feel it. And at that point, he knows
What's going on.
And he feels it. And his reaction is
he's like,
pure
I didn't
terror.
even think about that.
Because he's like, that's you. The devil is inside of you right now. I'm not going to feel that.
Right.
And then even whenever she first meets that woman that eventually commits suicide, and she shows the necklace, and you pretty much know that those two old people are doing what they're later going to do to Rosemary. They're already trying to do it to this girl.
So what do you think the deal with her was? Did they want her to have a
Why
baby?
was she killed? I don't know. That's
I don't know what
wondering, too.
I was pretty. I guess did they make her? I don't think they made her kill herself. I don't think that was the plan.
I don't know if, I mean, maybe it's incidental. Like, maybe it doesn't actually matter to the plot, but I do wonder what their motivation was for having her do that. Or, actually, maybe they actually didn't want her to do that. It could have been a situation where, like Rosemary, she figured out what was going on, felt completely helpless because she had no family, right? I mean, she was someone who was addicted to drugs on the streets. So they knew that
and they
were,
helped her. They kind of changed. And I think they were looking for a viable candidate. And you can even see that when they first meet Rosemary, like the way that she looks at her with her glasses, kind of like, if she's gone, we can work with you guys.
Right.
Well, and that's why really it's the husband's weakness in the end that makes Rosemary the perfect target, because his kind of control allowed by the culture of the day and his own selfishness and weakness and desire for success without having to actually earn it ends up making Rosemary the perfect candidate to carry Satan's child.
The attitude that he has throughout the entire show of just, hey, listen, we can have another kid. We can have more kids. It'll be fine. Like,
that's also a really good clue that he knows that it's not really his baby.
Yeah. He does.
He has almost
doesn't
no
want anything to
emotional
do
attachment
with
with
it.
it.
Well, so that leads me to sort of my final question. Did she, in the end, like, did her love for the fact that it was her baby, like she did have an emotional attachment to it, is that going to keep her with the baby?
That's what creeps me out so much about the end is that when
you
you
see the
realize
love in her eyes when she's
baby,
looking at the baby. You never see the baby, so you don't know what's going on with it. But like, she's looking at it and she loves it.
Yeah, and I feel like an inkling of that, and I think that's what is so disturbing, that whenever the old man says, let Rosemary rock her, and she says, like, you're trying to make me be his mother, and he goes, aren't you his mother? That she then feels like, wow, this is actually my child. And that's what I find is so disturbing about the movie.
And then, and that raises larger, uncomfortable questions about actual real-life rape victims who get impregnated and the conflicting feelings that come from that. And so, yes, it's a terrible,
so like, when this came
terribly
out,
fascinating dynamic to think about.
in '68 when this came out, right? 68.
Yeah, 68.
I mean, these were obviously issues. I mean,
I feel like. Well, what do you mean by these?
I don't
issues?
know. I mean, like, I watch this now, and for whatever, I mean, I guess I wasn't alive in '68. I didn't watch it then, but now this is really strong. You watch this, and you really feel for this. I feel like he was trying to send a message. You know?
Yes, there's definitely some social commentary.
Right.
And I think it's from
about a woman's.
Was that so? Would that
helplessness.
have been even more like powerful then?
I would imagine
it might have
so.
been. Like, it's from the same writer who did the book of Stepford Wives, which it kind of is the same thing of a woman's place in society, and makes that a commentary by making it over exaggerated and how. So I actually did not think of that very much. I kind of just have thought of it as a
If you were watching that
baby.
movie as a woman in '68, I imagine that you would feel very frustrated and also feel like you could empathize and understand a bit as this woman who has everything figured out, like we said, is constantly being told, no, you're wrong, kind of stay in your lane, stay in your corner.
Well, I guess it's hard for people to talk about a lot of these themes now. So I just wondered how difficult it would have been to get a movie out there like this
it's
in
even tougher,
68.
right?
Yeah.
It's even tougher, which makes it a bit more forward thinking. Real quick before we finish up here, one of my favorite parts of this movie, I told you about this the other day, it is the line where they refer, and it shows how old it is, but there was a line where they talk about the 90s in this movie, and I was like, wait, what? That doesn't make any sense. And then you realize they're talking about the 1890s. That's how far back we're going. All right, final thing on Rosemary's Baby. Was it more scary or creepy to y'all?
Creepy.
Oh, creepy. Yeah, creepy.
Yeah, like no real jump scares, no moments where you're just like, oh my God, I can't.
And this might be a pretty defining thing. I'm not a big fan of horror movies that make me like jump necessarily. Yeah. I'm at least for me, I like horror
slow
movies
build.
that they like afterwards stay with me and
yes,
like that.
Yes, which I would actually
that might impact our
I was going to say,
three.
to talk about all three of these movies, too, there's almost an undercurrent that I felt with all of these in that term, where I was never too freaked out at the time of watching, but afterwards I was definitely a bit like, your back's itching a little bit. You go into like a dark room, you're kind of checking the corners first. All right, so that is Rosemary's Baby. I love this movie.
I do too.
Y'all,
Oh,
I would
I really
recommend
like
this
it.
to anyone. It is a great Halloween film. Also, because of HD, like, just to talk about the fidelity. Nate, can you explain how this works? How can a movie from 1968 be so clear? Is it just because we didn't have the screen technology to take advantage of what the film was actually capturing? Because I watched this in like full
they
HD,
remastered
Well, yeah,
and it
there
was
have
beautiful.
been a lot of remasters. They
Yeah.
would have taken like a really good original negative, put it through a computer, worked on it for like a month, and then so most of what you buy now
never
of
knew that.
Rosemary's Baby will be a remaster.
And it's beautiful.
oh yeah,
Mm-hmm.
oh it's so pretty.
It looks great. I love movies set. It just gives you an idea of how people were actually living in '68 as well, which is always
Really quick though,
fascinating
the
to me.
opening scene, and I guess they ended with the exact same scene that they opened with, but it's like that music and it's playing. It's a pan of New
With
York, I
Mia
guess.
Farrow.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's like the
humming that
rooftops
song.
or whatever.
Yeah.
So I had not seen the movie. I did not know that it was in New York. I almost felt like it was Paris or something. It was strange.
It did look a little,
little
Parisian.
bit.
It
I
didn't
agree.
look
That one
very
building
New
that they
Yorky.
show was very,
Yeah.
very Parisian.
You know that is also where John Lennon was killed. That hotel.
I did
Really?
not. Nate, you were all. I'm so proud.
You know
of
all
you
the
were
stuff.
all
Yeah.
full of fun facts today.
Oh yeah, well, that's not a fun fact.
Yeah.
Oh, that he
John
was killed?
Lennon being
my bad,
killed.
my bad. You're right. I should say interesting factoids. My God, okay, that's a fair point. All right, so that is Rosemary's Baby. Go check it out. Next up on the list, probably the one that I'm most excited about today, and that is The Exorcist from 1973. Nate, what we got?
1973, made by William Friedkin, who made other things like Sorcerer, Killer Joe, The French Connection. And I know
don't know any
that
of
we said last week how, it was psychological thriller Silence of the Lambs was nominated for a horror movie. This is like the only full-out horror movie that's been nominated for Best Film.
And it was nominated, did not win?
No, it didn't win.
Okay.
But didn't it win? The score won best.
It might have.
I
But
didn't
he's
get
saying,
the music.
he's saying for best overall
got it, yeah,
film.
yeah,
yeah.
I would
It won-
imagine that it could definitely have won an Oscar for its score because
Best
well,
writing and best sound.
So I'll jump in here because that kind of segues perfectly into my first point with this movie and something that I absolutely loved, which was the sound design. Unbelievable, man. Whether it was the Reagan, the little girl, when she's possessed, the voices that she was making and how it was backwards, they played it forwards, but not even that. Like, that's all well and good. Really good sound design. But it was how they constantly made you uncomfortable in benign situations, whether it was with the music or just by playing sounds too loud. Like when you first hear the Exorcist theme, she's walking on a beautiful fall day.
And she's like seeing little kids, and there's
Oh, yeah.
leaves.
perfect fall
and-
day. It's like it's picturesque. It's Americana at its finest, and yet you feel extremely uncomfortable because of that score that's coming in, or like when he's visiting his mother. And I mean, I'm not saying that scene's supposed to be happy because she lives in like a dingy little apartment. It's
Right.
kind of sad, but the radio being just a little too loud the entire time, it just
I
kind of
never picked
grates
up
on
on
you.
that.
It makes you uncomfortable. And to me, throughout the movie, a lot of the sound effects were just like almost a little too loud, and it was constantly bugging me, but in the right way. Like I believe that it was fully purposeful, and it just gives this edge to situations that really shouldn't have it. So the sound design, hats off, unbelievable.
That was my favorite part of the movie. Full disclosure, I'm not as excited about it as you and Nathan.
Oh.
I know.
I'm sorry.
well,
I completely interrupted you. Go
No,
ahead.
no, no. I mean, I didn't have much to say other than I didn't love the movie. No, I think that the movie for me took a long time to build up, which I know you said you liked because it set the scene, did
Yeah.
the thing, and I think that it was intentional. I recognize that the slow build up was probably intentional on their part to build up tension and explain the background and whatever, but I didn't. It was too much. It was too slow.
Well, I guess on the sound thing first, the opening wherever the Exorcist title comes up and it has that
Yeah.
strange Arabic.
Oh yeah,
so like, that
Oh,
creeps
crazy,
me out
crazy,
so
crazy,
much.
Crazy.
But,
so alien sounding to our ears, and maybe
Yeah.
that's a bit even cultural with us because it's not
Oh, yeah,
music that we're used to
absolutely.
listening
Right.
to at all. But just makes you uncomfortable off the bat.
I think that within the first hour, because I guess we were talking about how like an hour and 10 minutes into it, I realized the Exorcist thing hadn't even happened. And it wasn't that it took a long time, but I think it's an hour and 10 minutes whenever the doctors recommend that you need to look for an exorcist.
Which, by the way, another scene with the doctors where you're like, there's nothing wrong with her brain.
And that's what I thought that the hour and 10 minutes leading up was particularly scary about, because I think they build on, like, you have a priest who kind of doubts his faith. You have these people who really aren't religious who start realizing that this might be something that's actually supernatural.
Yeah.
I think it builds up the credibility of whenever you're in the room with the devil, you're like, yeah, this is
That's
the devil.
Credibility is the name of the game for the first hour and a half of this movie. Only the last 20 minutes actually have the heavy exorcism scenes. And that's why it works, in my opinion. It made me realize why movies like The Exorcism of Emily Rose and all these new age exorcism movies, why they don't work, is that they're focused on the part that, in my opinion, isn't necessarily the most terrifying part, right? Mm-hmm. Like, The Exorcism in and of itself, I'm someone who'd have to be convinced that that's actually going on. And so when that's your entire focus, I have a hard time being scared because I almost don't believe it. It got that credibility because they went through every medical avenue that they could. They explored everything that they could.
I saw all of it. Every scene.
Well, but I did love this scene wherever they had like a comedic amount of doctors in a room with her, like 17 doctors, and they were like, we've got no idea.
Can we also talk, those doctors, and maybe this was intentional as well, they were so cold. There was no bedside manner. When they're doing that procedure,
spinal tap,
where they're just they're kind of like, be still.
Well, and so done that highlight though, they use, in my opinion, they make medicine and the hospital and some of the tests that go on there, they make it very scary and very creepy. And as you said, as the viewer, we know that she's actually possessed because the title of the movie is The Exorcist. And we've seen, at that point, the bed jump around. Like, we've seen supernatural things.
We've heard the attic stuff.
Yes, we've seen supernatural things take place beyond a shadow of a doubt.
She's peed on the carpet.
And so that makes it all creepier at that point, because when you see them, you see blood squirting out of her neck, and you see the MRI machines and everything else they're doing. You know it's a useless cause and that she's being put through pain for no reason. And just the whole scope of this movie took me aback when you open in northern Iraq and you're on like an archaeology dig and you have the priest who finds, and to me, it, like I said, it lends it more weight. The scale gives it credibility, even not just the buildup medically, but the scale of starting halfway across the world on this beautiful giant set. It just has a scope, and that's why I think it probably got nominated for Best Film. I feel like it has a scope that you don't often see in a lot of horror movies, and I fell in love with this movie because of that scope, because of that scale, because of that buildup. I'd never seen The Exorcist before. I'm a huge Exorcist fan.
Really?
No, I'd never seen it before.
I didn't realize that.
This will 100% be on my Halloween watch list from here on out. I thought it was incredible.
Yeah, I really like the way that, and I think the reason it might have been nominated is that it wasn't really going for, like you said, the scares of what happens in The Exorcism. Like, that is only the last 20 minutes. And I kind of thought watching it this time that Father Karras, I kind of thought he was the main character, that, because I know Reagan is the one who gets possessed.
Yeah.
Right.
It kind of feels like it's his journey.
Yes,
realizing,
and you're talking about, what is his name, Dominic? No, not Dominic. Damien.
Yeah.
Yes, which...
Pretty funny.
That's got to be pretty intentional, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, he starts off, and I think the first thing he tells the mother is that evil is psychopathic. It is not supernatural. And then through everything that happens with his mother, everything that happens by being involved with this case, everything that happens in the exorcism, like, he even goes into that exorcism kind of like, I don't know if this is really... I don't think we need an exorcism. But by the end, I mean, obviously.
He tries to tell the other priest, he's like, well, do you want to know about the 3 personalities?
Yeah.
And he's like, there's only one.
Yeah.
Speaking of the voice, which was creepy.
Her voice, all of her voices were unbelievable.
And I think they did a good job with Linda Blair or Reagan of making her seem so just innocent and like, the most
like at the beginning of the movie,
child,
she's so
most
happy-go-lucky.
loving. And so then when she turns into this monster, it just makes it even more obscene. All the things she's saying. I mean, all the things she's saying in general are obscene, but just because of the place she came from and the voice.
So let's talk about the actual kind of exorcism or the actual possession itself. Were there any scenes within the possession that scared you more than others?
Oh,
I know 2 that stand out for me.
During The Exorcism?
No, not even specifically in The Exorcism, but I mean the scenes that follow her possession. Like her peeing on the carpet, saying you're going to die. Like the bed flipping around. Was there anyone that messed with you kind of more than others?
What was, I forget, whenever he visits her the first time, and I think it was, he like looks over to the side and then you see the demon face for like two frames.
Yeah, just like, it's like subliminal almost.
Yeah, that really freaks me out. And then also just the parts with Ellen Burstyn, the mother, whenever she goes to the priest and is like, I've been to every therapist and they sent me to you and you're sending me back to them.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that creeped me out. Her desperation.
This is bad, but I couldn't help but feel like that's like when you like call the cable company or something and you have a problem.
Do not put me on hold.
You're like, no, don't send me back to IT. I just came from there. They sent me to you. Damn it. No, but to me, the scary possession scenes when she's doing the full body,
when her
up and down, and she's like, help,
that's true.
help. And then, man, when she is stabbing herself.
This scene right there.
Oh, yeah.
I was gonna say when she starts like being very obscene.
Obscene throughout the movie.
She's
and
12
lifting her dress.
here.
Okay,
12
very
years old.
Lolita.
So how about the scene where she is stabbing herself either in the thigh or in the vagina with a crucifix and bleeding everywhere, and then takes her mother's face and buries it in her crotch and is telling her
This
to
makes me
lick
very
her.
uncomfortable.
And she comes up like it is very uncomfortable.
Makes me very uncomfortable.
very effective.
Very effective.
It was. It really was.
You got
Okay.
me, religion.
So before we move on from the Exorcist, though, I think do you want to discuss the end? Kind of what you think happened in the end? What is the? Did they exorcise the demon? Where is the demon currently?
Yeah, they did. Yes.
Oh yeah, I think it went into him.
I don't know.
And then he killed himself. I mean, have you? There's another.
There's more movies.
There are more movies. Have y'all? The second Exorcist
I didn't
is total
see it.
trash.
I have not.
But Linda Blair's in it,
is
right?
The same,
Yeah.
But is the same creative team behind it?
No. They kind of watching the second one. It messes up the story of the first one because they go in a completely different direction.
Get it out of here.
Yeah,
Get it out of here.
It's not good.
No, I will say this. Why I think, and I like to examine movies based as like a singular text, right? Unless it is the original creative team and they laid out this trilogy and they've always wanted to be this way. I want to examine a movie based on its own merits. And the feeling that I got from the end of that movie is that demon is absolutely in that necklace that she gives to the priest at the end. Because if you watch closely,
Is that how number 2 starts?
when he
No,
tells
no, it's something-
when he really, it's not how it starts. See, that's crazy. to
No,
me.
it starts in India, and
Oh, so they
Of
were
course.
going for the same.
like they go
vibe.
back thousands of years at
Of
some
course.
point. And
No, but okay, but
2
3
hours
hours of
later, they make
build-up.
it to America.
But if you watch the end of that movie closely, when the demon goes into him, his face clearly changes.
Oh,
He
yeah.
takes on the demon. Oh, and when they're wrestling, when he's punching Reagan, the demon rips off the necklace, right? And then the demon goes into Damien. His face changes, and he's like, "Oh, you're not gonna get me!" And he dives out the window. Right before he dives out the window, his face changes back to normal. I don't know if they're saying that he took back control of his body, or if the demon then left him and went into that necklace. But it seems to me like they lingered on that necklace entirely too much. What was the point of the demon ripping off the necklace during the fight and making a point of really showing that and going out of your way? Maybe it was just to have like a memento for the mother of Damien, but I don't. They even go through the significance of handing off the necklace to the priest at the end of the movie. I very much think
It's in the necklace.
in my opinion, that the demon definitely, it may have gotten exercise from Reagan
You should
himself,
write a strongly
but it
worded
is-
letter to the people who did the second movie.
Yeah, for real, right? It is not back in hell. It's in that necklace with the priest friend. In the end, the demon kind of wins. It ends up with a body count of a major Hollywood director, 2 priests, and it doesn't seem like it's really been banished anywhere.
No, I guess I never thought about the necklace.
I didn't think about the
before.
necklace either.
I thought that, I thought he took control of his body and
it could
pretty
be
much
that.
died
It
with
could be
him.
that.
I did think that the demon did still win in the end because I don't think the demon died.
I mean,
with-
does the demon ever really die? Like,
Exactly. No, it seems like he was pretty ancient with those old archaeological statues.
Exactly.
Which I love the scene where the
Oh,
evil winged statue shows up on the bed.
And she's like reaching up with her tattered clothing.
I can't.
Should Reagan have been arrested for murder?
I mean, I thought whenever they said
No,
that she
she
killed the
was-
director, I thought, how have the police not gotten involved?
Well, she didn't. I mean, because like you can't prove that she killed the priests,
She was
right?
possessed.
Because both the priests died. But if she actually physically put her hands on the director and snapped his neck and threw him out the window,
I mean, I think you'd probably have to go through a whole nother movie where they have to try and convince the courts that she was possessed.
Yeah.
You know what I think is interesting? When this movie came out originally, people went to see it. I don't know how this happened now that I know it took an hour and a half to get to the exorcism. But these people were like fainting in the theater and having to be carried out.
Yes,
Like,
no,
this is a big deal.
My mother still to this day will not watch horror movies because when she was about 13 years old, when this movie came out, she saw it and it just completely scared the hell of her. I should say this, I get an overall feeling as we're doing this October wonderful horror movie marathon that we have become a bit more desensitized.
Oh, absolutely.
nowadays.
No, and I think that now it is very much Paranormal Activity where it's like quiet. Ah!
Well, I definitely got. I mean, I know we're gonna move on to The Witch, but that's the movie that really made me feel so desensitized to.
Like you just did. Well, hold on. We'll
We'll get to
save
it. But that applies to all three of these.
Absolutely.
movies.
Like Rosemary's Baby
Yes.
was probably much more shocking at the time. I feel like in the 60s, and this is probably speaking out of turn, I obviously wasn't alive in the 60s, but I feel like the idea of an occult group secretly simmering underneath the surface was probably something that a lot of people kind of felt or could get behind in the 60s. The special effects, the language, just the head turning in The Exorcist were probably all much more terrifying before we had all these crazy torture porn movies
Right.
and everything else.
Right.
But I still found it to be very effective. I really enjoyed The Exorcist. And to me, it absolutely, I don't know, all of these exorcism movies that have come since, like Emily Rose or whatever, they need to take a note out of this book. They're focusing on the wrong
They need
parts.
at least 2 hours before that exorcism.
Okay, you disagree. But me and Nate are on the same page. You need more setup. You need more build-up.
No,
You can't
I think,
just jump
I think build
right
up
to
and
the
setup
finale.
is good. I don't mind that. I didn't mind most of the build up. It was just
You felt it.
It was a little long. It was
got
a little-
there.
Okay. So that is The
Now,
Exorcist.
actually, I don't know. How long was the version you watched?
I did not watch
it
the
was 2
director's
hours.
cut
It was
specifically.
121 minutes.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. So then, yeah, that's the original one.
I want to watch the director's cut.
I
though.
watched the director's cut by accident. So
How long was yours?
Do you know?
2
Do you
hours,
know?
20
Do you
minutes.
know what
Oh,
was?
God.
Do you know where the extra 20 minutes where they came
I'm
from?
gonna need to watch the original again. I'm not sure what they put in
They
there.
couldn't have put it in the setup.
You say they couldn't have. That's probably think about what ended up on the cutting
Don't
room floor. It's
challenge
probably
them.
that. No, that I specifically wanted to watch the original, so now I can go back and watch the director's cut and have an idea of what was added and whether or not I think it's a better movie. So that was The Exorcist, 1973. You've done Rosemary's Baby, 1968. Now, for the first and only time this October, we will venture into the 21st century. I would have loved for our only 21st century movie to be It Follows. I'd recommend that to anyone. Unfortunately,
I wish.
it
Yeah,
couldn't
I've never
quite.
seen that.
Oh, it's so good. It couldn't quite make the list, just because whatever. So we ended up doing a movie that I'd never seen. Had y'all seen it?
I had never seen
Yeah,
it.
I had seen this.
Okay, you'd already seen it?
I saw this in theaters. This was
Oh.
terrifying in theaters.
Oh,
It freaked me
nice
out in theaters a
job.
lot more.
Oh, I
than-
bet with like the loud, like just the creepy
Yeah,
sounds.
there were so
and
many
the-
times when watching this. Oh, I'm sorry.
Well, no,
We'll
let's
get
just do the
into-
setup. So we did. So this is 2015's The Witch, a New England folktale. Nate.
Yeah, this is directed by Roger Egers. This is the first movie that he has made. Has not made another one since. I think he's doing a remake of Nosferatu next.
I'm in.
And
Whatever this guy wants to do, I'm in.
So yeah, it's a Puritan. Well, yeah, it's New England. So Puritans. There's one family that is being pretty much banished from the society for reasons
The
that have
dad
to do with.
is a
it was-
rabble rouser of sorts, it
He's
seems.
like the Puritan of the Puritans.
Yes, exactly.
Prideful conceit.
It's
Yeah.
like, how in the world, though, can you be so religious that even the Puritans are like, dude, this guy, come on.
You
man.
gotta
We
get out of
we
here.
get
You gotta
outta here,
go.
dude. This guy's
Which I think
ridiculous.
we
Being a
see
buzzkill,
later.
man.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
yeah,
man.
so they go out, and after they're on their own for a few years, and they feel very much like this is we've found our new home. This is going to be the Lord's land. And after about how long? It's like a year, maybe a year, 2 years. They have a baby, and the baby goes missing.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, very quickly, you see that the baby is killed in one of the most distressing scenes I've ever seen.
It was so good.
And yeah, then they
Trying to play peekaboo.
It was so
yeah,
good.
yeah. And then it's pretty much they start to decide, they turn on each other. Like, is there a witch? Is there not a witch? And more things start happening. And
Well, and the baby disappears under circumstances where, like River said, the older sister's watching the baby, playing peekaboo, and, just from going here to here, all of a sudden it's an empty crib.
Right.
And she's kind of at the edge of the forest. And you see a little, you have a little reason to believe that maybe something took her into the forest. Can we talk about what happens to the baby?
Oh, yeah.
Quick?
Yeah.
Oh, I just thinking about it now.
So then you see they end up showing you the baby. It's in some sort of hovel. Is that the right word? I don't know. A little dark building of sorts, and there's your stereotypical kind of witch there. Not stereotypical in terms of like a hook nose, a black cap, but like very kind of old and
frail,
haggard.
yeah.
More
and
like you
naked.
would imagine people in that time thought witches were like.
And that highlights what I love about this movie is the entire thing feels like exactly what people of that time period would have feared.
Yeah.
Would have feared from a witch. But so she has the baby. She has this knife, kind of rubs it over the soft baby belly, which you can tell. And then, of course, she kills it. And then...
When you kill a baby, that feels very aggressive.
It's so sudden. The very next scene is just...
It's a mortar. It's a giant mortar and pestle. And at first you're kind of like, okay, is she like... What's she doing over there? Yeah, what is it? A little toil, boil in trouble, whatever it is. And then, no, sure enough, it's
not hocus pocus.
No, she's making baby paste.
Halloween Town?
She put that baby in that mortar and pestle, grinded it up, and then seemed to rub the bits all over
So,
herself.
question,
fly
I
away.
had not considered this until just this moment. I wasn't thinking about why she did that. So later in the movie, when the son, Caleb, goes out into the woods on his, gets lost and finds that witch, is that the same witch? Did she get all beautified because of the baby blood?
I think there is a lot.
She was
stuff
young
in
and
this.
good.
I kind of thought maybe she was able to do that. I kind of feel like there's so many questions that go nowhere near giving us answers.
Yeah.
And I
Which
think
is
that's
good.
what's
I hadn't
scary
thought about
It's
that. I hadn't thought about. I mean, I knew that the baby's blood was used for something.
It could be. I kind of take it more as one of her powers is just to be able to maybe appear in certain forms, but maybe, to your point, maybe the baby's blood is what then allows her
I don't know.
to do
Maybe
that.
that's very vain of me. I just always want to look like that.
Look, if you're making baby paste, I don't know if you're worried about being that good looking. Like you're so far beyond the pale when you're mortar and pestling babies into ground up little bits to then rub on your naked flesh. I don't know if she cares about having a sweet cleavage going on.
I don't know. Priorities.
The witch was good looking.
Well, I think
the
that-
young witch was really good looking.
I think that was pretty much
And like Caleb,
preying
that was-
upon what Caleb
Caleb
wanted to see. And that was
really
what
wanted to see it.
The
I
witch
mean-
was about, like feeding upon everyone's weakness.
So there was
very
already
good
that
point.
like weird incest thing going on with Caleb and Thomason. Which,
Yeah, but can you blame
Which
him?
was so it was strange because you obviously saw him like feeling those feelings and then feeling guilty, but he really loved her, like
Yeah, he
wanted
did.
to take care of her,
yeah.
but also was probably just going through some stuff. He's a little boy; they're out in the middle of nowhere.
And he didn't do anything. He took
No,
a look.
not
He's
at all.
like
Just
11.
Took a look at his sister, and we're so desensitized to incest at this point because of Game of Thrones. But I think where I draw my
We
incest
celebrate
line,
incest now, thanks to Game of Thrones.
I think I draw my incest line at like little kid incest. It made me uncomfortable.
Little kid cest?
Yeah, like it made me uncomfortable.
It wasn't.
Well, you have to
absolutely
think
did.
this is someone who's going through his pubescent years
Yeah.
with mom and dad and sister, and then 5-year-olds.
And then she's like pulling him into her bosom.
Yeah.
you
Oh,
know,
yeah, no,
like,
this
it
is
was
a
it
good
was
looking girl.
uncomfortable.
I
Yeah, it was-
I think what he was feeling.
I'm not saying it was
natural.
unnatural. I'm not saying it
Yeah.
was. I mean, he's a little boy. He's going through whatever.
Oh, I
And
thought
as you
that it
said, it's a
was-
credit to him that he
But it
wasn't
made
like
me
actively trying to
uncomfortable for
act
sure.
on it.
I thought
And
it
that
was
the
completely
point.
necessary for whenever he then sees this sexy Little Red Riding Hood thing that you can just feel, oh, he's going to that.
Yep, he's going to
Like,
that.
even though there's no way that he should.
Oh, yeah, and you feel like,
He's
don't
still
do it.
going
You get
to.
why.
I know there's a witch in these woods, but I'm gonna come with you.
One thing that I loved about this movie is that it highlighted something that I think is lost on us in the present day, which is the fear of the woods. And yes, if you were to get lost in the woods
I
today,
was afraid of those woods. Watching them.
It would still be scary to get lost in the woods today. I don't mean it like that, but I don't think we really appreciate what the woods used to mean back in the day. I mean, it meant death, right? There could be wild animals, there could be bears, there could be wolves. There were outlaws living in the woods. I mean, you did not, if you were a part of civilized culture, being banished to the woods was essentially a death sentence. And that fear was there when you see that tree line and you see how immediately dark it gets beside that tree line. I love that it played on something that we don't always appreciate.
Well, they set the mood. I mean, the lighting, or I don't know, the lighting or how they set the scene in the movie was just creepy in general. Everything was very dark and like muted. And then
muted.
And then the sound, and then there was the woods, and like that's why the woods looked so creepy to me. There was just this distinct line, like here's where we are, and that's where we don't go.
Well, because it's like the edge of civilization,
right?
You're going into the wild,
unknown
madness, unknown, like
it's like outer space to people in the 1700s.
Exactly. And I maybe my favorite part of the movie was the fear of the woods and what Nathan said earlier, just how it plays up exactly what it would have been. What your fears would have been if you were living in the 1630s.
Oh, and I got freaked out whenever Caleb comes back, and it starts to get to the point where those douchebag little kids start blaming their sister
God, those
for
twins.
Yeah.
I wanted
Why
the
are those
witch.
twins so damn creepy?
Feed the little twins to the witch.
Did they
Give
have
them
black
to the
contacts
witch.
then?
Well, and also that's
And they were
the
kind
thing.
of
I
fat,
think you
and
don't.
it was like,
Whoa, fat shaming kids!
You're
Are
like,
you kidding me?
Incest is much worse, but then
fat
you're like,
little-
Who's the
annoying
real
kids.
monster, Rivers? Answer the question.
oh, and I thought that like you don't know like this Black Phillip.
Black
is this
Phillip.
is this
Phillip.
part of the being the devil that's communicating with those kids? Are the kids evil?
So can we talk? Okay, that actually leads me to a question. So do you think, let's say the baby had not been kidnapped in the beginning. Mm-hmm. So a lot of what was happening to them, like their crops were failing. And, there's old Black Phillip over here.
Yep.
And then some of the animals, like when they were milking them, some blood was coming out, which I don't think was totally, I'm sure that could happen. Do you think if the baby hadn't gotten kidnapped, they would have ever even suspected a witch?
So. And I think that's part of what's so scary, that it's just them turning on each other just out of fear. And I think it's another paranoia thing, kind of back to Rosemary's Baby. Like they don't know and they decide to act on that by turning on each other.
And really, by the end of the movie, we don't know.
No, yeah.
We're like,
Exactly.
is it happening? Is it not? But then,
who's the actual witch, though?
in the end,
The
I kind
devil
of loved it.
shows up.
By the end, I was so happy. I was like rooting for the devil a little bit because I hated the family so much. And like they basically come to Thomas and they're
Calvinism
like, "Can I
sucks.
show you the world? Do you want to live deliciously?" I'm like, "Hell yeah, girl, go do your thing."
I was kind of like, hey, if you can't beat him, join
Fly.
him. It's like,
And
hey,
she starts
all
to
right.
fly. She starts to fly, and she's
Oh,
like
yeah.
smiling.
What are we
You're
doing
like,
tonight, y'all?
yes.
We making baby paste? Let's do it. Let's
Making
get
some
come
baby
on, who
paste.
brought
What
the
we doing?
paste?
I was so happy for her when she started to float.
It was a
It was
situation
so
where
awful to her.
She could also have died. Everyone's starving. The entire family is starving. So that could have been a little bit of
They were just so awful to Thomason.
to me,
Oh, yeah.
I enjoyed that really in the end it becomes a witch creation story. So if you're wondering how someone gets to be a witch in the first place, this kind of lays out how, like, just one way that could potentially happen with Thomason's family getting banished, everybody slowly dying, and then of course her
Also, the
eventually
dad
ascending
was
to
just
the ranks.
lying every 4 seconds.
Oh, yeah.
That guy
And
was. That's
total
why he got
hypocrite.
kicked out of the community. He was the worst.
Then and I do like how because of the times, because of their religious beliefs, the idea that one of his children very well could be a witch was very realistic to him, which gave everything more weight.
I think he was the most likely person to be a witch. He was the one that was always messing up and lying and blaming.
See,
things
I don't
and-
think I never got the feeling that
I mean,
he
I didn't
was.
think he was actually a
Well,
witch.
yeah,
I just mean.
he wasn't living by the moral code
No.
that he set for his family.
He had kind of set himself up for failure by those rigid rules that they had. But then again, it's
Those Puritans.
Puritanism.
Now, I must ask, what dost thou think about thine language that
The
they
first
used
5 minutes, I
in
thought
the movie?
I was going to be in trouble. I was like, I'm going to go on on the cast thing,
So,
and I'm not going to know how to talk about this
For
movie.
those who don't know, they use legitimate 1630s English in this movie. They actually have a frame at the very end where they say that they used like real dialogue from journals and other contemporary sources.
I thought the amount of detail did like half of the work for the movie. It put like within the first few seconds, I was like right there in New England, and I could believe that they believed all of this weird stuff.
I was just happy that
I
my
can't agree
brain
more.
and my ears started working together eventually,
Yeah.
and I understood what they were saying.
Isn't that in and of itself fascinating, though? Where for the first 10 minutes, I'm right there with you. I actually had to rewind the first 10 minutes because it felt like you were listening to a different language.
Hold fast, my son.
But whoa, hey,
Whoa,
geez, whoa, man, that
Nathan.
sounded great in the headphones.
It did.
But like the first 10 minutes, I'm kind of like, what are they? What? And then once you hear the hither and tither and thou and thee,
The old hither and tither.
isn't it weird though how then you can pick up on what they're saying? Like once you're in that right mindset, then you fully understand it. But I thought it was a very bold choice because when you're talking about dealing with mass audiences, that would turn off so many people, like just off the bat, that would never get over it because you use this old language. I thought it's exactly what Nathan said. The detail in the world building in this movie was magnificent.
You love building a world.
I do. That is true. I love the wardrobe.
Oh,
The
yeah.
wardrobe was so good. It looked so bespoke and handmade. It just, I would recommend all three of these movies.
That young actress, I've only seen her in this and in Split. I think she's an amazing actress.
Yeah.
She's doing, I think she'll be someone to look out for in the coming
I
years.
still haven't seen Split. Is Split technically like a part
It's
of the
M. Night
Unbreakable?
Shyamalan, right? Yeah.
But it hasn't it like been tied back into Unbreakable,
Yeah,
and then
there's
they're making
another-
like a third one.
Yeah.
Weird. M. Night Shyamalan. He's
Doing his
back.
thing.
That's also a scary proposition. All right, real quick before we get into ranking these, which one did y'all think were the scariest out of this?
Scary.
Well,
Well, again,
watch
we
it,
talked about
yeah.
the
It's an odd term.
disensitive-
It's an odd term. I guess you could say creepiest. Like which one? Because like we said, none of these are jump scare movies. None of them try to be, but they do all pervade and just kind of ooze a sense of unease and creepiness.
The Witch.
The Witch got you the most.
Yeah, just, I mean, it was creepy.
Yeah,
It was-
while watching it, and even probably afterwards as well, The Witch is, it stays with me.
Yeah.
The Witch definitely got me afterwards more than anything because I'm going around my house. I'm turning off the lights. I'm kind of like I said, the hair on my neck was standing up. Like, man, why do
Although,
this is
I mean,
kinda
I felt
crazy.
very ambivalent about all of them. Only because, I mean, we very much grew up in a generation of Scream and The Ring and whatever, you know. But it was nice to see these movies and feel that discomfort.
Rosemary's Baby is a very good movie. It's definitely the least creepy or scary
Yes.
to me. And maybe that's partially desensitization, partially to me because I think the whole crux of that movie isn't actually about the devil's baby. It's like we said, it's almost about how
So
a
much
woman
more.
can be completely controlled and
Which
just put
actually
into a place.
is a horror
It's like
for
way
me.
more terrifying.
That's
Yeah,
terrifying
yeah.
to me, you know?
And then, but I gotta say, The Exorcist for me personally. I just thought.
So,
man.
is this ranking? Are we ranking? Or are
no.
we just
This I
saying-
was just wondering which one y'all found creepiest.
Okay.
Now, are we ready to rank?
Yeah,
Let's
yeah, yeah.
rank.
Who wants to start?
I can
You
go.
want to go left to right?
Sure.
Our left to there. Our right.
I'll start.
Yes, sir. Good, perfect.
I would say, while all of these movies scared the hell out of me, I would go The Witch, The Exorcist, and then Rosemary's Baby.
Are we working forward to back? That's
Yeah,
your
so
1, 2,
three.
3.
I keep doing that every week. The number 3 is The Witch, number 2 is The Exorcist, and number 1 is Rosemary's Baby.
Oh, okay. So Rosemary's Baby on top for you.
Yeah, that's over the long amount of time. Like I've seen that movie so many times, and every time I think back to it, it still grips me with some type of fear. And I think it's the last scene. I think it's just the utter feeling of betrayal that she goes through, and then the acceptance of that betrayal.
I do love that. That's such a good point.
Yeah.
With the very end where like, does she actually love the baby? Something that I hadn't really stopped and thought about that much. To me, I'm right there with you. I have The Witch as the third movie on this list. Very good, very enjoyable. It's not a slight to The Witch. I just don't think it's quite as good of a movie as these other two. Rosemary's Baby's number 2 on my list, and you probably could tell the conversation. I loved The Exorcist. Oh, I loved it so much. So The Exorcist is definitely number 1 on my list.
Okay, so number 3 is The Exorcist.
Ah,
Oh, I know. Break your
for
heart.
shame.
Disgusting.
The power of Christ compels you.
And number 2, The Witch.
Okay.
Number
okay.
1, Rosemary's
Hey,
Baby.
there you go.
We all agreed.
Hey.
I was.
No, we
Awesome.
didn't. T-Bob was wrong.
No, we didn't. Yes, I did not. Wait, so I had The Witch, Rosemary, and Exorcist
So
on top.
I think it ended up Rosemary 1, Exorcist 2, The Witch,
Witch
3.
3.
Yeah, Rosemary 1, Exorcist number 2, The Witch number 3. You heard it here first on Real Friends, episode 2. I hope that everybody enjoyed this. Coming up next week, the 80s horror holy trinity. That's right. We're going with Friday the 13th, Halloween, and
I almost said Miracle on 13th Street, but
Friday 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street. Yeah, not at all Miracle. And Nightmare on Elm Street. So you got Freddy, you got Jason, and you got Michael Myers. Who will reign supreme? Find out on Real Friends episode 3. We'll see y'all next week.